I guess I should start by saying that I never thought I'd be the guy whose wife would cheat on him. My name's Mike, and I'm just an average guy in my late 30s, working a steady job in IT and living in a suburban neighborhood with my wife, Sarah, and our two kids. On the surface, everything seemed fine. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I thought we were solid. That was until I started noticing some changes in Sarah's behavior. At first, it was subtle. She began spending more time on her phone, always texting and giggling to herself. I figured it was just some group chat with her friends or possibly work-related. Then she started coming home late from her yoga classes, claiming the instructor was keeping everyone after to talk about wellness. It didn't sit right with me, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself I was being paranoid. Things escalated gradually. I was getting more distant myself, too. Work had been particularly stressful, and I started spending more evenings in front of the TV trying to unwind. I noticed how Sarah would pass by me with a quick peck on the cheek before disappearing into the bedroom with her phone. It felt like she was slipping away and I was helpless to stop it. Still, I trusted her. Yeah, I know, probably the first mistake. The turning point came one Friday evening. I was just getting comfortable on the couch, binge-watching some series, when I heard her phone go off in the kitchen. I thought about ignoring it, but something compelled me to look. I found Sarah's phone lying face up on the counter. The screen lit up, revealing a text from a contact named Dr. Smith. I chuckled at first. Why was she texting our family doctor? That's when I noticed the message. "Can't wait to see you again tonight. We'll have our own little checkup." My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I picked up the phone and read through the conversation. It was exactly what I feared, a flirty exchange with our doctor that quickly escalated into something much more inappropriate. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream, but I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I felt betrayed and humiliated. When Sarah arrived home later, I confronted her. I was shaking with anger and disbelief. "Who the hell is Dr. Smith?" I asked, my voice a mixture of rage and hurt. The look on her face was one of panic, quickly masked by a facade of innocence. She stuttered, "What are you talking about? It's just a professional relationship. You know how doctors are." A professional relationship. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A professional relationship. You call texting him about checkups professional? I shot back. She started throwing a bunch of excuses at me. She claimed it was just harmless flirting, that I was overreacting, that I was too stressed and needed to chill. I couldn't believe how she tried to downplay it as if it was nothing. At that moment, I realized that not only was she cheating on me, but she wasn't even sorry. It was infuriating. I could see she was trying to twist the narrative, turning it around to make me the bad guy for being upset. As I stood there, hurt and betrayed, I felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. My whole world was crumbling, and all she could think about was saving her own skin. I remember feeling completely lost. I thought about our kids and our life together. I had always been the one who worked hard to provide for our family, and now I felt like I was losing everything. It was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. Would I confront Dr. Smith? Would I confront her parents? No, I needed to take a step back and think clearly. This was a turning point for me. I realized I could either wallow in my heartbreak or take charge of my life. I knew I had to make a decision, not just about what to do with Sarah, but about my own well-being. I thought about how I had neglected my own health and happiness while focusing on our family. I felt a fire igniting within me. I would not let this define me. I was going to thrive and reclaim my life, no matter what that took. As I sat in silence, contemplating my next steps, I knew that whatever I chose to do would shape my future and my kids' future. The real question was, where would I go from here? End of part 1. After that confrontation, I took some time to gather my thoughts. I needed clarity, and the emotional storm swirling in my head was making it almost impossible to think straight. Instead of giving in to anger or despair, I decided to take control of my situation. I began to set small goals for myself, starting with my health, something I had neglected over the years. I contacted a new doctor to take over my health care, someone who didn't have any ties to Sarah. I had always let her manage our medical appointments, but now I was going to take the lead. I found a local clinic and made an appointment for a full physical. It felt empowering to assert some control over my life. Gone were the days of sitting back while she made all the decisions. It was time for me to step up. At the same time, I took a hard look at my emotional health. I started running again, something I used to love before life got busy with work and family. The rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement became a form of therapy. Each step felt like I was shaking off the weight of betrayal. I also began journaling. Just writing down my feelings and thoughts helped me process the chaos in my head. The more I focused on myself, the clearer my thoughts became. I wasn't just a victim in this scenario. I was a man facing a painful reality, and I wanted to emerge from this stronger. I started eating healthier and even enrolled in a class at the community center, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. It was a cooking class, and I figured that if I was going to take charge of my life, I might as well learn to cook something other than grilled cheese and microwave meals. Meanwhile, Sarah's behavior continued to be erratic. After the confrontation, she would shuffle around the house, pretending like everything was normal, but it was far from it. She tried to initiate conversations, but I kept things curt. I wasn't interested in her attempts to smooth things over. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I needed her to understand that this wasn't going to be swept under the rug. One evening, I was preparing dinner for the kids when Sarah walked into the kitchen. She had been trying to engage me in conversation about the kids' school projects, but I was in the zone, chopping vegetables and focusing on my meal prep. It was a sort of meditation for me, allowing me to lose myself in something productive and healthy. As I chopped, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Mike, can we talk? I hate that we're going through this. I want to fix things," she said, her voice a mix of frustration and desperation. I turned to her, feeling the heat of my anger bubbling up. "Fix things? You want to fix things after you've been sleeping with our doctor? You don't just get to say that and expect everything to go back to normal. You've shattered my trust." I paused, watching her face twist as she processed my words. "You need to understand that there are consequences to your choices, Sarah." Her eyes widened and she started with her familiar excuses again. How it was just a mistake, how she didn't mean to hurt me. None of it resonated with me anymore. I felt like I was listening to a broken record. I was done with her. Lies and manipulations. That night after the kids were in bed, I decided to take a bold step. I texted Dr. Smith. My heart raced as I typed, "We need to talk. I know about you and Sarah." It was an impulsive move, but at that moment, I wanted him to know that I was not going to be ignored. I wanted to confront the man who not only betrayed me but also had the audacity to flirt with my wife while being our family doctor. The response came quickly. "Mike, let's discuss this in person. I never meant for it to happen. Never meant for it to happen." That was rich. I felt a surge of anger, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I texted back, "Tomorrow at the cafe on Main Street. Be there." I had no idea what to expect from this meeting, but I felt like it was the next step in reclaiming my life. I wasn't just going to confront Sarah. I was going to go directly to the source, the man who had crossed the line and disrupted everything I held dear. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I was ready to face whatever came next. It was time to take action, to lay it all on the table. I wasn't just going to thrive. I was going to come out on the other side, stronger and wiser, no matter how this played out. End of part 2. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Part of me wanted to cancel the meeting with Dr. Smith, but I knew deep down that I needed to confront him. I needed answers, and I needed to understand how he could betray my trust so easily. I got the kids ready for school, all the while keeping my feelings in check. I didn't want them to see the turmoil brewing inside me. After dropping them off, I made my way to the cafe. It was a small, cozy place with the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. I arrived early, hoping to calm my nerves before the confrontation. I ordered a black coffee and sat at a table in the corner, watching the door. When Dr. Smith walked in, I felt a surge of anger flood through me. He had a casual air about him, dressed in a crisp shirt and jeans, looking like any other guy enjoying his Saturday morning. But he wasn't just any guy. He was the man who had betrayed my trust, the man who had crossed an unthinkable line. I waved him over, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Mike," he said, taking a seat across from me. He offered a weak smile, and I could see the nervousness in his eyes. "Let's skip the pleasantries, shall we?" I said, cutting straight to the chase. "I know about you and Sarah." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I never wanted you to find out this way. It was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened," but he trailed off, avoiding my gaze. "But what?" I pressed, my voice rising. "You think this is some teenage romance? You're a doctor. You've taken an oath to do no harm, and yet here you are sleeping with my wife. You've ruined everything." He looked genuinely remorseful, but that didn't help my anger. "I know it's hard to understand, but it was complicated. Sarah came to me for advice about her health, and one thing led to another. I should have known better. I should have stopped it." "Complicated?" I scoffed. "What's complicated about being faithful? You took an oath to help people, not to sleep with their spouses. You had a choice." At that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about Sarah's betrayal. This was about holding him accountable for his actions. I needed him to understand the impact of his decisions. "You've hurt my family. You've shattered my trust in you as a doctor, and frankly, I don't think I can ever forgive you." Dr. Smith nodded, looking defeated. "I understand if you want to file a complaint. I'll accept whatever consequences come my way." The thought of filing a complaint crossed my mind, but part of me knew it wouldn't change what had happened. Instead, I opted for something different. "I want you to stop seeing my wife. No more appointments, no more contact. You need to end this, and you need to do it now." He agreed, and I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't a solution to the larger problem, but it was. Start. I walked out of that cafe feeling lighter, even if just a little. I had stood up for myself and taken control of the situation. When I got home, Sarah was there waiting for me. She had an anxious look on her face, and I knew she sensed that something had happened. "How did it go?" she asked, trying to gauge my mood. I took a deep breath, my anger bubbling just below the surface. "I told him to cut ties with you. No more appointments, no more contact," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Her expression shifted from anxiety to outrage. "You can't do that. He's my doctor. You're overreacting, Mike. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, letting my frustration spill out. "You had an affair with him, Sarah. That's not just a mistake. That's a choice, a terrible choice." The fight escalated quickly. She tried to twist the narrative again, claiming that I was the one pushing her away, that I hadn't been supportive enough, that I was the one who had made her feel isolated. It was infuriating to hear her deflect blame. I realized I had to stand my ground. I would not allow her to manipulate this situation any further. "I'm done listening to your excuses," I said firmly. "You've broken my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. We need to figure out what this means for us, but I'm not willing to play this game anymore." Sarah fell silent, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. I knew she was scrambling to find a way to regain control of the situation. But the truth was, I was ready to take back my life. Over the next few days, I focused on my health and well-being even more. I continued my exercise routine, cooking healthy meals and investing time in my kids. I wanted to show them that despite everything, I could still be a good father and be present in their lives. But inside, I was still hurting. The emotional impact of the betrayal lingered, and I found myself wrestling with feelings of anger, sadness, and confusion. I spent many nights lying awake, replaying everything in my mind. What could I have done differently? How did we end up here? It was during one of those sleepless nights that I realized something important. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to make a decision about how to move forward. I needed to decide whether I would work on our marriage or if it was time to cut my losses and leave. The thought of separating was terrifying. We had built a life together, and the idea of starting over was daunting. But I couldn't ignore the reality of her betrayal. I had to put my needs first this time. End of part 3. I spent the next week wrestling with my thoughts, trying to understand what I wanted for my future. I reached out to friends, talking through my feelings and asking for their perspectives. Some suggested couples counseling, while others believed that it might be time to consider separation. Each conversation left me feeling more confused than before. I appreciated their support, but ultimately, It was a decision I had to make for myself. One night, after the kids were in bed, I sat down with Sarah to have a serious talk. I needed to know where we stood, and I wanted to hear her side without the excuses and deflections. I wanted honesty. "We need to talk about our marriage," I began, my heart racing. She looked at me, her expression shifting from uncertainty to annoyance. "What do you mean, you don't want to work on it? You're just going to throw everything away over one mistake?" "It's not just a mistake, Sarah," I said, feeling the frustration bubble up again. "You chose to betray my trust. You need to understand how deeply this has affected me. I need to know if you're willing to fight for our marriage or if you want to let it go." For the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with anger. "I've already apologized. What more do you want from me? I want to fix this. You're just being stubborn." "Stubborn? No, I'm not being stubborn. I'm trying to protect myself and our kids. This isn't just about you and me anymore. We have a family to think about," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "If you want to fix this, it can't just be lip service. I need to see genuine change and effort on your part." She crossed her arms and the silence stretched between us. "What do you want me to do? Spend every waking moment proving my love to you?" I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. "I want you to stop seeing Dr. Smith for good. I want you to be honest about your feelings. I want you to show me that you're committed to rebuilding our relationship. But I also need to know if you truly want to be with me, or if you're just afraid of the consequences of your actions." Her defensive walls slowly crumbled. "I know I messed up, Mike. I was looking for something I thought I wasn't getting from you, but I realize now that it was wrong. I want us to work, I really do," she said softly, her voice cracking just a little. At that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. It was the first time she hadn't deflected blame or minimized her actions, but I couldn't ignore the doubt that lingered. "Are you saying that if we go to counseling, you'll put in the effort? Are you saying you want to fight for us?" "Yes," she replied, looking me straight in the eyes. "I want to fight for us. I don't want to lose you or our family." Her sincerity made me pause. I had seen glimpses of remorse before, but this felt different. Maybe we could still salvage something from this wreckage, but I wasn't ready to dive back in just yet. "Okay," I said slowly. "Let's try counseling, but know this. If I don't see genuine effort from you, I can't promise I'll stick around." The days that followed were a mixture of hope and skepticism. We found a counselor who specialized in couples therapy, and the first session was a whirlwind of emotions. We shared our feelings, and for the first time, I felt like Sarah was being honest about her struggles, her insecurities, and her reasons for the affair. It was hard to hear, but it was necessary. As the sessions progressed, I saw some changes in Sarah. She started making more of an effort to connect with me, planning family activities and even surprising me with my favorite meals. I was cautiously optimistic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was still fragile. Through it all, I focused on my own growth. I stayed committed to my health, consistently running, eating better, and even engaging in activities that brought me joy. I discovered a sense of fulfillment outside of our marriage that I had long ignored. I was learning to prioritize myself, to be a better version of me, regardless of what happened with Sarah. But the emotional scars ran deep. At times, I found myself awake at night, replaying everything over and over in my mind. I questioned if I could ever truly forgive her. Was I willing to take that leap of faith, knowing all too well that betrayal had already shattered my trust? One evening, as I sat on the couch, I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. I pulled out my journal and began to write. I poured out my feelings, the anger, the hurt, the hope, and the fear. Writing became a cathartic release, a way to navigate my emotions as I tried to find clarity. Amid the ups and downs, I made a conscious effort to communicate openly with Sarah. I wanted her to know that the road to rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy. It was going to require patience, understanding, and hard work on both our parts. But I also realized that I had to be honest with myself. I needed to consider what would happen if, after all this effort, we still couldn't make it work. What would my life look like? As I penned those thoughts, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a man taking charge of his life. It became clear that regardless of the outcome, I would be okay. I would thrive, whether with Sarah or without her. End of part 4. As the weeks turned into months, therapy sessions became a routine for Sarah and me. We delved into deeper issues that had always lingered beneath the surface: communication styles, unmet needs, and the pressures of raising a family. There were moments of vulnerability and connection, but there were also tense discussions that brought up raw emotions. I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, but the shadows of betrayal still loomed large. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we returned home in silence. I could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. I wanted to talk about what we discussed in therapy, but I also wanted to avoid a confrontation. It was a delicate dance, and I wasn't sure if I was stepping on her toes or if she was stepping on mine. Finally, I broke the silence. "So, how did you feel about what we talked about today?" She sighed and ran her fingers through her hair, a sign I had come to recognize as her way of processing. "I think we're finally getting somewhere, but I can't shake the guilt. I keep thinking about how I hurt you. I'm scared you'll never really forgive me." I felt a pang in my chest. It was hard to see her struggling with guilt, especially when I was still grappling with my own feelings. "I want to forgive you," I admitted, "but it's hard. Some days I feel like we're making progress, and other days it feels like we're stuck in the same cycle." "You're right," she said softly. "I can't expect you to just forget what happened. I have to earn your trust back, and I want to. I just wish I could take it all back." "Well, I know you do," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But it's going to take time. It's not just about saying you're sorry, it's about showing me through your actions that you're committed to this." As we talked, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could get through this, but I also knew that my heart was still guarded. I wasn't ready to let my walls down completely. The truth was, I was still scared, scared of being hurt again, scared of putting in all this effort only to end up in the same place. The following weeks felt like an emotional seesaw. Some days I felt optimistic, buoyed by the progress we were making, and on others doubt crept in like a thief in the night. I found myself constantly questioning whether staying in the marriage was truly the right choice. Was I holding on out of love, or was I just afraid of change? One evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat down with Sarah on the couch. "Can we talk about our future?" I asked, feeling the weight of the moment. She looked at me curiously, her expression a mix of hope and apprehension. "What do you mean?" "I just want to understand where we're headed," I replied, searching for the right words. "Are we working towards rebuilding our marriage, or are we stuck in this limbo forever? I need to know if you're committed to this and if we're both on the same page." She paused, clearly grappling with her thoughts. "I want to rebuild what we had," she said finally. "I want to make this work, but I also know that it's a process. I don't expect it to happen overnight." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. "I want that too, but I need to be honest. The thought of fully committing again scares me. I don't want to build my life around the idea that things will go back to how they were, because right now that feels impossible." Her face fell slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "I understand. I'm scared too, but I'm willing to fight for us, Mike. I want to show you that I can be the partner you need." That commitment felt significant. We agreed to keep being transparent with each other and check in regularly about how we were feeling. It was a small step, but it gave me a glimmer of hope. We were both acknowledging the challenges we faced, but we were also willing to walk the path together. Despite the hopeful moments, there were still tough days when doubts would creep in. I found myself questioning Sarah's actions, wondering if she was truly committed or if she was just saying what I wanted to hear. I needed evidence of her sincerity, not just words. One Friday evening, I was preparing dinner when I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey Mike, it's Dr. Smith. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out to see how you and Sarah are doing." My heart raced as anger bubbled up inside me. How dare he reach out after everything? I felt my blood boil as I read the message again. I was livid. I quickly typed back, "Do not contact us again. You've done enough damage." I showed the text to Sarah, expecting her to be as furious as I was. Instead, she looked pale, her eyes wide. "He shouldn't be contacting us." I told him to stop. "Clearly, he hasn't gotten the message," I replied sharply. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. How can I trust you or him when this keeps happening?" "I'll handle it," she said, her voice shaky. I'll text him and tell him to back off. He has no business reaching out to us after what happened." I watched her as she typed furiously on her phone, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I wanted to believe her intentions were good, but the doubts lingered. "I just need to see that you're truly committed to this, Sarah." "I am," she insisted, looking me straight in the eyes. "I want us to heal, and I want that more than anything." That night, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, fear, and a flicker of hope. We were still navigating the rocky terrain of our relationship, but we were also taking steps to move forward. It was a slow process, but I was beginning to see the possibility of a future built on renewed trust and understanding. Could we really make it work? Only time would tell. End of part 5. As the days turned into weeks, the aftermath of Dr. Smith's unwelcome text lingered in the air, casting a shadow over our progress. Sarah assured me she had texted him to make it clear that his contact was unwanted, but the incident reopened wounds I thought were beginning to heal. I was constantly on edge, my mind spiraling with thoughts of betrayal and doubt. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I decided it was time for a heart-to-heart conversation again. "We need to talk about what happened with Dr. Smith," I said, my voice steady but firm. Sarah took a deep breath, her expression serious. "I'm sorry. I didn't think he would reach out. I told him everything was over between us. He shouldn't have contacted you, and I feel awful." "Sorry isn't enough," I replied, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. "You need to understand how much this is affecting me. It feels like we take 2 steps forward and then someone pulls us back." "I know," she said, her voice catching. "I'm scared too. I don't want to lose you. I want to make this right. I promise I'll be more careful. I'm committed to you and our family." "But it can't just be promises," I said, feeling the weight of our situation. "We need to have boundaries. You need to cut all ties with him. I understand the past is hard to erase, but I need to know I can trust you." She nodded, her eyes swimming with tears. "I will. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I'm in this. I'll even change doctors if that's what it takes. I want our family to heal." I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me, but I also had to be realistic. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. It was a long process, and I was still grappling with my own fears. I had to remind myself that it was okay to take things one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, we continued our sessions with the therapist, exploring deeper issues and strengthening our communication. As we shared our feelings, I began to see Sarah's vulnerability in a new light. She opened up about her insecurities, how she felt overwhelmed by the pressures of life, and how easy it was for her to seek validation outside of our marriage. Each session was a mix of breakthroughs and setbacks. There were days when I felt like we were finally making progress, and then there were days when the old wounds felt fresh again. I realized that healing wasn't a linear process. It was messy and complicated. One Saturday, after a family outing with the kids, I caught Sarah looking at me with a softness I hadn't seen in a while. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I want to take a trip together, just the two of us. I think it could help us reconnect." The idea intrigued me, but I also felt hesitant. "A trip? With everything going on, I don't know if I'm ready for that." "Please," she pleaded, her eyes earnest. "I want us to remember what we have together. I want to rebuild our connection. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, just a weekend away to clear our heads." After a moment of contemplation, I agreed. Maybe a change of scenery could provide us with the space we needed to reconnect. We planned a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods, away from the chaos of our daily lives. As we drove to the cabin, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. It was a chance for us to reset, to focus on each other without the distractions of our everyday lives. Upon arriving, the serene surroundings enveloped us, and I could feel the tension begin to dissipate. The first evening, we sat on the porch, sipping wine and watching the sunset. As the vibrant colors painted the sky, I found myself reflecting on our journey. "You know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about trust," I said, breaking the silence. "It's fragile, and I realize now that it's going to take time for me to fully trust you again. But I want to try." "Thank you," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means everything to me that you're willing to work at this. I know I have a long way to go, but I want to be the partner you deserve." We spent the weekend reconnecting, sharing stories, laughing over meals, and even taking long hikes in the woods. It was refreshing to see Sarah in a different light, without the weight of our problems hanging over us. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. As we headed home, I realized that while the road ahead would still be challenging, I felt hopeful. I had learned that healing takes time, effort, and an openness to change. I wasn't just focused on what had happened, but on how we could move forward together. When we got back, I felt a renewed commitment to not only work on our marriage, but also to prioritize my own growth. I began to focus on my well-being, keeping up with my running and my cooking classes, finding joy in personal victories. I realized that thriving wasn't just about our relationship. It was about becoming the best version of myself. In the months that followed, we continued to work hard in therapy, reinforcing our commitment to each other. There were still bumps along the way, but we faced them together. We learned to communicate openly, to express our feelings without fear of judgment, and to navigate the complexities of our relationship. Looking back on everything, I learned that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be a catalyst for growth, both individually and as a couple. I understood that rebuilding trust takes time, but with dedication and effort, it is possible. As I sit here reflecting on this journey, I feel grateful. Grateful for the hard lessons, the moments of vulnerability, and the chance to reclaim my life. I know that whatever the future holds, I will thrive, either with Sarah by my side or as a stronger version of myself. The choice is mine to make, and that realization is incredibly empowering. I hope that anyone facing similar challenges knows that there is always a path forward, and it starts with understanding oneself and being willing to confront the hard truths. End of part 6.